exactly do you have in your hand, and what are you going to be showing us?
If you want to know how big Goliath, or maybe Adam and Eve were, let me show you.
All right, let's see it. So this doesn't really tell us how tall they think Goliath and for some reason Adam and Eve were. Assuming that individual is between 5 and 5.5 feet tall, that would put Goliath at well over 10 feet, which isn't really supported by anything in the Bible. And even if we were to assume that the cubit being mentioned in 1 Samuel 17:4 was the royal cubit as used in Egyptian construction and things like that, and there is no reason to assume that's the cubit that is being mentioned, that seems to be a lot taller than what we would get with 6 cubits and a span, which is what we read in the Masoretic text. Here is the reading from the Leningrad Codex of 1 Samuel 17:4, and on the top line it's talking about the Philistine. Goliath was his name, from Gath, and then on the bottom line, Govho Shesh Amot Vazaret, which would be his height was 6 cubits and a span. And that comes out to almost 10 feet, like 9 foot 9 inches, somewhere around there. But we can go back to this fragment from a manuscript known as 4Q51 that preserves 1 Samuel 17 from Qumran. And it's a little hard to read here, but here is an infrared photo. And it very clearly reads Arba'ah Amot Vazaret, which would be 4 cubits and a span. And that's about 6 feet 9 inches. So that's quite a bit shorter. And this is also the reading that we find in the majority of our early Septuagint manuscripts. This is from Codex Vaticanus. And you see on the second to last line on the right, Tessaron Picheon ke spithamis. And that is 4 cubits and a span. And we also have in Josephus, in his Antiquities, Book 6, paragraph number 171, Ingar pichon tessaron ke spithamis. So, and he was cubits 4 and a span. And so our earliest and our best witnesses to the tradition of this giant named Goliath from 1 Samuel 17 puts his height at about 6 feet and 9 inches. There aren't really any good arguments for why the text would go from 6 cubits and a span down to 4 cubits and a span. But there are good reasons the text would go from 4 cubits and a span up to 6 cubits and a span. As traditions circulate, they tend to increase the grandeur, the majesty, the height, the size, the time, all that kind of stuff in order to make stories grander, more significant, more meaningful, more useful to people. So the overwhelming majority of scholars agree that Goliath's height was increased over time, just like those fish stories we hear about. And why Adam and Eve should be included in this is not really made clear in this video, but it sounds like these are folks who like to buy into the idea that the pre-Diluvian world was this fantastical world where everything was larger, everyone lived longer, there was more oxygen in the air, and there was less pollution and less deviation from whatever norm God established when they created the earth. So I guess they just probably think that Adam and Eve were a part of all this as well, but that's not really supported by anything in the biblical literature. That's a more esoteric tradition that a lot of people like just because it sounds cooler, I guess. And the fit for this video has been DuckTales, a woohoo!